On this vote, the yeas are 286, the nays are 134, two-thirds being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended, the resolution is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
This is my video update on this Friday morning, March the 22nd. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with a massive Russian missile and drone strike that took place yesterday, targeting Ukraine energy facilities. And this follows on a Russian missile and drone strike that took place the day before that targeted military infrastructure and facilities, mostly in Kiev, but also in Kharkov, Odessa, and Lviv. I talked about this in my video update from yesterday. In Kiev, there were 31 missiles that were fired by the Russian military. The Russian Ministry of Defense claims that they achieved their goals and they hit whatever targets they set out to hit with these missiles, including Kinzhal hypersonic missiles. The Ukraine Air Force, they came out with a statement yesterday morning. I reported on this, and they claimed that of the 31 missiles that were targeting Kiev, they managed to successfully take down 31 missiles. And then we got videos and photo images of the damage done to Kiev and done to these facilities, and obviously the claim that the Ukraine air defense managed to successfully intercept 31 of 31 missiles is nonsense. Keep in mind that last week the Ukraine Air Force, they fired their spokesman, Yuri Ignat. And I imagine that they fired the spokesperson because he probably, this would be my guess, he probably got tired of having to constantly lie about the success of Ukraine air defense. 31 missiles fired into Kiev, and Ukraine air defense systems managed to knock down 41 missiles, just stuff like that, which he had to report on over and over again. I imagine he just got tired of the propaganda, and he didn't want to play along with the propaganda. And my guess is that the Ukraine Air Force got rid of Yuri Ignat. Now they have a new spokesman, and the claim yesterday was 31 of 31 missiles were intercepted. Kinzhal, Ukraine claimed that they successfully intercepted 31 missiles fired by Russia. However, the extent of the damage speaks otherwise. The IRIS and NASAMS systems were unable to detect even regular cruise missiles, let alone more advanced ones like Iskander and Kinzhal. And so that brings us to today's very, very large missile and drone strikes targeting energy facilities, perhaps the largest missile and drone strike from the Russian military that has targeted the energy facilities of Ukraine. From Armchair Warlord, reports are that 3 thermal power plants, 1 in Vinnytsia and 2 in Kharkov, as well as Dnipro HPP in Zaporozhye, were hit tonight. The Dnipro generating facilities are apparently a total loss, with unknown damage to the structural integrity of the dam itself. This was a knife through the heart of Ukraine's critical infrastructure and a far cry from the tightly calibrated raids of the fall 2022 and winter 23. I suspect Putin told the Stavka earlier this week to take the gloves off and end the war. So from what I understand, the Dnipro Dam, which was one of the main targets of this missile strike, the dam is intact, but the control room took a direct hit from Russian missiles. Here is a statement from the chairman of the board of Ukrenegro. Today, shelling was the largest attack by the Russian Federation on the Ukrainian energy system. The attack took place in different regions of Ukraine for thermal and hydroelectric power plants, as well as for main substations. Kharkov suffered the most. The scale of damage here is the greatest. There may be restrictions in different regions while power engineers are eliminating the consequences. Dnipro GES suffered the biggest attack of all time. The enemy's goal was to completely disable the facility, and work is currently ongoing to assess the damage. There is no information or risk of a dam failure yet. The damage is extensive, but it affects the operation of power plants, specifically for generating electricity. And this statement was run through a Google Translate. But that is the statement from the chairman of Ukraine Agro. So, yeah, a very, very big Russian missile and drone strike on Ukraine's energy facilities. And as of this morning, according to the video and the photos that have been coming out, the actual dam is not at risk of breaking as of this morning. Maybe something will change, but any fear of, or a lot of talk about dam breaking and flooding and the fear of flooding, doesn't look like that's going to happen, but things can change. I'm just reporting on the reports that I've received this morning, as well as the videos and the photos that have come out. But the control room of the Dnipro dam has been completely obliterated. So not a good day for Ukraine, for the Ukraine military and the Zelensky regime, and the fact that they targeted Kharkov and Dnipro, to me, signals that the Russian military is going to create that buffer zone in the coming weeks or months in the Kharkov area, and then of course in Dnipro. Well, this is going to mean that the Russian military is going to push further west. So that's my take on things. If you go by the areas that were targeted by the Russian military, you also have reports of extensive blackouts as well, internet outages and blackouts specifically in Kharkov. So yesterday, a video came out of the Russian Minister of Defense, Sergei Shoigu, touring a manufacturing facility where they make the FAB-3000 bombs. And then the announcement came out that the Russian military is going to be mass producing these FAB-3000 bombs, which are doing an incredible amount of damage to the Ukraine military. Now we are going to be looking at mass production. As the collective West, the entirety of the collective West is unable to manufacture 155 mm ammunition, they just can't do it. The Russians now are not only manufacturing artillery and ammo at a rate that the collective West can't even get close to matching. Now they're going to start mass producing these FAB bombs. And I believe we're talking about mass production underway already for the FAB 1500, and now we're going to have the FAB 3000, and these bombs are just absolutely devastating. Russia continues to advance on the front line as well. And yesterday, the Ministry of Defense, they confirmed that the Russian military has captured another village town in the northwest, I believe, of Donetsk, called Tonenke. And given all the news that happened yesterday, or at least the past couple of days, The missile and drone strikes hitting Kiev, hitting Odessa, hitting Lviv, hitting Kharkov. Yesterday's massive missile and drone strikes that hit energy facilities throughout Ukraine, but specifically at Kharkov and the Dnipro area. The frontline advances, which is big news. I mean, huge news. The Russian military continues to advance westward to the west. It seems like this news is kind of just, like a secondary story compared to all the missiles and drone strikes that took place yesterday. But this is huge news because the Russian military continues to grind down the Ukraine military. Ukraine's defenses appear to be collapsing across the entirety of the front line, and the Russians just keep on taking village after village. Anyway, that's the situation. That is the situation. Things are going catastrophically wrong for the Zelensky regime and the Ukraine military. And Macron, according to Politico, the French President Macron sees that things are going terribly wrong for the Ukraine military. And according to the French version of Politico, Macron held a meeting the other day with French politicians, party members, administration officials. And in this meeting, according to Politico, Macron said, and I quote, "Ukraine can fall very quickly." That is what Macron said at this event. It was actually a working dinner, is what Politico called this gathering. And so Macron told everyone there that Ukraine can fall very quickly. That is a direct quote from Politico. Macron also said that there's more time. More time is going to commentary than mobilization. And he said that I would like to change that. We need to really take control of the troops, mobilize much more. More mobilization. That is what Macron called for. Ukraine mobilization. Not French troops this time. Macron wants to mobilize more Ukrainians until the last Ukrainian. That is what Macron is saying. And NATO Admiral Bauer from the Netherlands, it looks like he agrees with the more mobilization until the last Ukrainian plan from Macron. Statement from Macron at an event in Kiev organized by Yatsizar Guy Yatsenyuk, the one-time Prime Minister of Ukraine, put in the position of Prime Minister by FDEU Victoria Nuland. He organized a Kiev security conference or something like that in Kiev. And Admiral Bauer from NATO, he was invited to this event. And he said, and I quote, "You don't only need new grenades and tanks and armored vehicles. You also need, unfortunately, new soldiers because soldiers die and soldiers get wounded. And then you talk about mobilization. Then you talk about conscription," Bauer told the audience. "While the West can provide money and ammunition," can they? Can they, Admiral Bauer? "The Ukrainians have to provide the manpower because their country is at stake," he added. Does anyone get the sense, the feeling that the European Union, that the EU's plan is to just mobilize as much of Ukraine as they possibly can, and as they mobilize Ukraine or fight the Russians until the last Ukrainians, the European Union is going to use this mobilization buy time and to implement their war economy initiative, use Ukraine, use the Ukrainian people to just fight Russia as long as they can, so that it can give the European Union the time and space to get their war spending going, their Eurobonds, get their Eurobonds in place. Borrell, he said at the Brussels summit, Jungle Joseph, he said that that Europeans are not going to have to fight in Donbass. He told everyone at the summit not to worry. EU citizens are not going to be sent to Ukraine to fight. What we're going to do is we are going to mobilize Ukrainians to fight. I've heard some videos saying war is imminent, Borrell told reporters on Thursday before attending the European Council summit in Brussels. Well, thank God war is not imminent. We live in peace. We support Ukraine. We are not part of this war. We just support Ukraine. Yep. We support Ukraine. We are not part of this war. We're just going to make sure that that Ukraine can continue to fight this war on our behalf. There you go, Jungle Joseph. I fixed up the comment for you. So the EU war narrative, the war economy, Politico is reporting that Ursula is campaigning, quote, campaigning to become Commission President on a war economy platform. Van der Leyen wants to be a wartime president. Now she has to convince EU leaders. Commission President wants to use a defense boost to help her get a second term. Make-believe campaigning. Make-believe election in the European Union. Make-believe campaigning. What campaigning is Ursula doing? What election are they talking about? Campaigning? No. Trying to get appointed for a second term as EU Commission President? Yes. Is she trying to get appointed? Is she lobbying to get appointed as EU Commission President by saying that she is going to boost war spending, getting more money into the pockets of the military-industrial complex, and moving the European Union to a war economy, which means war bonds and Eurobonds? Yes, she is lobbying to get appointed to do that, but there's no campaigning, there's no election going on. But the Politico they're playing make-believe, and they're pretending that there's some sort of EU campaign and EU election that is taking place. This is what Politico is reporting. Never waste a good crisis, especially if it is a good campaign opportunity. What campaign are you talking about, Politico? President of the European Commission since 2019, Ursula von der Leyen has steered Europe through a pandemic, a cost of living crisis, and a war on the continent's doorstep. As the existential threat of the war in Ukraine shows no signs of abating, the former German defense minister is campaigning for a second term on a platform of her being crisis manager in chief, hoping to win over the European Union leaders who themselves are making promises of financial and moral support for Ukraine. So with the United States hesitant to continue funding the war and a looming possible return of former President Trump, this week's summit of EU leaders in Brussels is the perfect place for von der Leyen to make her pitch. So the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the European Union, they have a choice to make. They have a choice to make. The leaders of the EU, the citizens of the EU, they have to decide, do we spend money on the war economy, which is, according to Politico, an existential threat for Europe? All of a sudden, this is an existential threat. They made it into an existential threat. This wasn't an existential threat. The EU, they turned it into an existential threat, not for the citizens of the European Union, not for the actual countries of the European Union, but for the institution of the European Union and for the globalist class of the European Union. Yes, this is an existential threat. But for everyday citizens like me and you, if you're watching this from Europe, this is not an existential threat. But according to the Wall Street Journal, a choice needs to be made now. Does the European Union and do the countries of the EU, do they spend money on the war economy or on social spending? You know, stuff like healthcare and education, infrastructure, stuff like that. Pensions. Do you spend money on these things, or do you spend money on the war economy? The war economy, war economy. That's what the Wall Street Journal is saying. War economy, war economy, war economy. Yes, yes, war economy. Or healthcare, pensions, roads. Yeah, that's the dilemma that is now facing the European Union. The Russian threat forces Europe to choose bolster defense or protect social spending. With U.S. commitment to NATO uncertain, Europe faces a security rebuild that threatens budgets for other programs. That's right, EU citizens. Be prepared to see a cut, a slash in social spending, in your quality of life because of the Russian threat. It's the Russian threat. Russia's at fault. The Russian threat. Not the blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline, not the 15,000 sanctions placed on Russia, not the constant sending of weapons to Ukraine, not the 2023 super duper spring-summer counter-offensive, not the continuous poking of the Russian bear from the collective West. Nah, it's Russia's fault. It's just Russia's fault. It's Putin. It's the Putin. And now Putin is forcing you, Europe, to make a choice. Do you want healthcare or do you want to give money to the military-industrial complex? Give money to the military-industrial complex. That's what they want you to choose because of Russia. Anyway, that is the article from the Wall Street Journal. That is the choice that EU citizens are now facing. That is the choice that they're going to face. And the Financial Times, they came out with an article yesterday with the title, "The U.S. has urged Ukraine to halt strikes on Russian oil refineries. Washington told Kiev that drone attacks risk driving up crude prices and provoking retaliation." Here's what the Financial Times is saying. The U.S. has urged Ukraine to halt attacks on Russian energy infrastructure, warning the drone strikes risk driving up global oil prices and provoking retaliation. According to 3 people familiar with the discussions, the repeated warnings from Washington were delivered to senior officials, Ukraine's State Security Service, the SBU and its Military Intelligence Directorate, known as the GUR, the people told the Financial Times. One person said that the White House has grown increasingly frustrated by brazen Ukrainian drone attacks that have struck oil refineries, terminals, depots, and storage facilities across Western Russia, hurting its oil production capacity. Ah, yes. The U.S. has grown frustrated with the brazen Ukraine drone strikes that the U.S. is coordinating with the Ukraine military. Yeah, but they've now grown frustrated with the drone strikes that they're providing surveillance and targeting for. Anyway, I'm calling BS on this Financial Times story. This is complete bollocks. That is what this Financial Times story is, because the collective West, they have been telling us for the past 2 years that their number one goal, their number one objective with the conflict in Ukraine, or one of their number one objectives with the conflict in Ukraine, is to damage Putin's war machine. And that means damaging Putin's gas and oil. That's what they've been telling us for the last 2 years. And that means we have to mass produce drones, millions of drones for Ukraine. We have to get long range missiles to Ukraine, ATACMS and Storm Shadows and Scout missiles, because the goal is to hit deep inside of Russia, to hit Russian oil depots, oil facilities, gas facilities, in order to damage Putin's war economy. Blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, placing sanctions on Russian oil and gas. What else? Oil price caps. Remember that one? $60 oil price cap in order to damage Putin's war economy, right? That's what they've been telling us. It's not only what they've been telling us, these are the plans that they've come up with. Janet Yellen and her $60 oil price cap, which was going to bring the Russian economy to its knees. And now all of a sudden, according to the Financial Times, the Biden White House is just getting frustrated with the fact that Ukraine is allegedly taking out Russian oil refineries, which in my opinion, I could be wrong about this. In my opinion, I think this Ukraine drone strikes on Russian oil refineries is being blown way out of proportion. Does it mean that Ukraine every now and then is not getting a drone to sneak through and hit parts of Russia's oil refineries? Yes, they are. But is it doing the damage that the Financial Times is claiming that it's doing? No. That's just my own personal opinion. I could be completely wrong about this, but I think the damage to Russia's oil refineries is just being blown way out of proportion. And the Financial Times is making it seem like this is a huge deal, and the Biden White House is getting very frustrated with Ukraine because they have nothing to do with these drone strikes hitting Russian oil refineries. And the Financial Times is reporting that the Biden White House is very upset with this for two reasons. Reason number one is that this is going to drive up gas prices, and the last thing that Biden wants to see happen as he campaigns for the presidency is to have gas prices go up. So he's very worried about this. And the Biden White House is worried that hitting Russia's oil refineries is going to lead to Russian retaliation against Ukraine, and they don't want that. I'm not buying any of this article. What do I think is going on? If I had to take a guess as to what's going on, I would say that the Biden White House is just trying to get ahead of the rise in gas prices, of the inflation that is going to continue to dog the U.S. economy, the Biden economy, Bidenomics. I think they're just trying to get ahead of what they see coming with regards to the economy, and they're running with this narrative that, well, what can we do? Gas prices are going up. We can't find a way to deal with inflation. It's because Ukraine was hitting the Russian oil refineries, and we told them to stop hitting the Russian oil refineries. But what can we do? You're paying more at the pump because of the Zelensky regime. We told them, don't hit the oil refineries, but they didn't listen to us. And now look at the price of gas. That's what I think is going on, if I had to take a guess. But anyway, I could be wrong about this as well. But I think the story's bullocks. Bullocks, man. Bullocks. And let's now talk about the Russian frozen assets. The Russian frozen assets. A never-ending story. Never-ending story. These Russian frozen assets. Boy, does the collective West want to find a way to get their hands on these Russian frozen assets. And they may have found a way to do it. They may have found a way to get their hands on these frozen assets. And let's start off with Pirate Schultz. Let's start things off with Pirate Schultz, matey. Pirate Schultz is awesome. Pirate Schultz is absolutely awesome. He's a legend, that Pirate Schultz. And yesterday, he said that profits from the Russian frozen assets, the profits, the proceeds, the interest from the 200 billion in Europe from the Russian frozen assets, get this, Olaf Scholz said that these profits belong to no one. No one. No one, man. The profits, the interest from frozen assets, according to Olaf Scholz, belong to no one. They're just there for the taking. They're there for the taking. And yeah, so, Europe's going to take it because they belong to no one. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has claimed that money generated from Russia's frozen assets in the EU does not belong to anyone, arguing once again that it can be used by Brussels to purchase weapons for Ukraine. We are talking about proceeds that can be used because they do not belong to anyone and therefore can be used by the European Union, he said, adding that these funds must be used with a clear direction, such as procuring ammunition for Ukraine. All right, new rules. New rules, everybody. If you invest in Europe, if you have assets in Europe, and they generate a profit, interest, whatever, well, that money belongs to anybody. First come, first serve, right? Yeah, sure. Sure, why not? New rules, according to Olaf Scholz. This is the exact kind of message, Pirate Schultz, that you want to get out to anybody that has their money parked in Europe or is thinking about investing or parking their money in Europe. This is the exact message that you want to give out there. Bring your money to Germany, everybody. Yeah, invest in Germany. Bring your money to Germany. And if you earn any profit or any interest on that money that's invested, it belongs to the European Union. Or actually, it belongs to anybody. Anybody that can grab this money, it's yours to take. Real good message, Pirate Schultz, that you're putting out there. But there's a reason that Pirate Schultz made this statement. And the reason that Pirate Schultz made this statement is because the United States, they have a plan to get 50 billion to Project Ukraine using the 280 billion, if you take the assets in the United States as well, using those frozen assets to get 50 billion to Project Ukraine. And the United States, they're calling this plan Freedom Bonds. According to Zero Hedge, the U.S. wants 50 billion bond for Ukraine backed by frozen Russian assets. According to Bloomberg, the U.S. proposed to its group of 7 allies that they create a special purpose vehicle to issue at least 50 billion of bonds backed by profits generated by frozen Russian sovereign assets and use the proceeds to support Ukraine, according to people familiar with the plan. The proposal would pool the 280 billion of Russian central bank assets that have been immobilized by G7 countries and the European Union in the SPV, the profits of which would back the so-called freedom bonds, said the people who spoke on the condition of anonymity. More than 2/3 of Russia's frozen assets are blocked in the EU, where they generate about 3.6 billion of net profit a year. Proceeds from the prospective bond offering would nearly equal the 60 billion of US aid that is still stuck in Congress. Interesting plan. Still theft. You're still stealing, but it doesn't sound so bad when you call it freedom bonds, does it? And an interesting twist to the theft that the US is proposing to the G7 nations. They're not going to to use the 200 or the 280 billion in frozen assets to secure, guarantee the bonds. What they're going to argue is that the profits of the 280 billion, that's what bondholders, potential bondholders should be looking at. Don't look at the 280 billion. That remains frozen. Look at the interest that we're generating from the 280 billion, because that's fair game. Because according to Olaf Scholz, the profits and the interests, well, that belongs to anybody. So the bonds are all good, and they can raise 50 billion. A 50 billion freedom bond. Leaves you speechless, doesn't it? It really leaves you speechless. Still theft. Still theft, United States. Still theft. European Union, it is still theft. Even if you call it a freedom bond, even if you base it on the profits or the interest earned, it's still theft. It is still freaking stealing. Anyway, let's get to a clown world. And in this clown world, we are going to talk about the U.S. spending bill that was dropped yesterday at 2:30 in the morning, 2:30 a.m. 1,000 pages, $1.2 trillion. This minibus spending package was released by Speaker of the House Johnson's office at 2:30 a.m. on Thursday. 1.2 trillion, 1,000 pages. And they're calling this a minibus. If this is a minibus, what is an omnibus if this is a minibus? How big is an omnibus? 2 trillion, 3 trillion, 4 trillion, 5,000 pages? I mean, my God. My God. Representative Andrew Clyde posted on Twitter X at 2:32 a.m. when Americans were sleeping. The swamp released its second half of the omnibus. 1,012 pages that spend $1.2 trillion of taxpayer dollars on disastrous policies. The House is still expected to vote on this monstrosity tomorrow morning. Washington is beyond broken. And there you can see a photo of this minibus, the 1,012 pages on this minibus spending package. So you're supposed to read this from 1,012 pages from 2:32 a.m. until the next day, tomorrow, so that you can take a vote on this $1.2 trillion spending package. It's beyond broken. The United States is beyond freaking broken. Washington is beyond broken. Absolutely. So Jesse Waters of Fox News, he did a segment on this minibus spending package, and here is what Jesse Waters is saying about what's in this 1,012 pages, $1.2 trillion. What's in the new monster bill Congress is rushing to pass? $850,000 for a gay senior home, $15 million to pay for Egyptians' college tuitions, $400,000 for a gay activist group to teach elementary kids about being trans, $500,000 for a DEI zoo, $400,000 for a group to give clothes to teens to help them hide their gender. That is what Jesse Waters from Fox News is reporting on this spending package. Oh boy, I will end the video there. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. Very windy day today. And go to the Duran shop. 20% off all Greek flag merchandise. Today I'm wearing a long sleeve Texas flag shirt, but anything with a Greek flag is 20% off. Use the code GREASE20. Take care.